Take 6. Gentlemen and ladies, welcome once again to the Pandemic Crisis Training Center Range. As you know, my name is Major Depression, and I am your instructor for the hour, or as long as I can go on this tedious block. The title of this block of instruction, primarily informational and not demonstrative, is aptly called Shock Therapy. And please, for the moment, disregard the electrodes near where you are seated, as we will not be making use of them today. And aren't we glad? Sir, I said, sir. Aren't we glad? Sir, yes, sir! War, gentlemen and ladies. As you shall recall from previous instruction, as one theoretician poignantly observed, is merely an extension of national policy by other means. And anyone with just a familiarity with the term will tell you that as the whole is the sum of all its parts in mathematics, a war is comprised of discrete parts that we, who are engaged in the profession of arms, refer to as battles. In terms of art, as lawyers say, the most prolific of which, accentuating the element of surprise, one of the principles of war, is that of ambush, a technique, and procedure, or TTP, that is most effective against unseasoned, undisciplined, and untrained troops who will prepare for you a table in the presence of your enemies, like shooting ducks in a barrel. Sir, yes, sir! As the history of mortal combat developed into organized skirmishes, evolved above the simple brute acting independently with a stick, it soon became readily apparent that if you could shock your opponent, you could immediately and effectively accrue a battlefield multiplying advantage. And early forms of warfare were honed to a state of the art perfection when domesticated horses were deployed as units of cavalry. While it makes a very pretty picture to stand above your troops atop a mighty steed or stallion, assuming the mask of command and urging on your men below and ladies, cowering in fear behind embattlements, peeing in their pants, and awestruck by your invincibility, wholly unaware that those days were those of which you were in fact not a god of war, nor of the science of ballistics that would work a trajectory for a projectile far away from your zone of safety and comfort. That a commander was actually in the very safest place on the field of battle, aided by a conception of Newtonian physics that we like to call gravity, to add levity in the profession of war. And if several of these invincible warriors, however, were found charging at you, cowering in your fear, peeing in your pants, or dress, imagine the shocking effects on those combatants, hence the term shock troops. Comprende? Cabiche? Does a God in heaven love you more than a simple beast of burden? I pray so, my dear soldier. I pray so. Test practical exercise test. A hand grenade has just been lobbed at your position from your enemy to your fore. What do you do? What do you do? Sit there and wait to die? Or approach that hand grenade with a kill radius of 15 meters right in front of you? Grab it smartly and throw it back as fast as you can. What do you have to lose? You're going to die anyway. Or you might be a hero. Or shock troops are shock therapy for the mentally defective in war. Rare is that soldier possessed of the situational awareness naturally before charging cavalry. You stop and think about the immediate advantages accrued in crisis, the opportunities afforded by a precarious situation. The cavalrymen are charging forward at you and lightly armed with short-range armaments at the ready, while you have a long-range rifle to engage them from afar. Take them out! You can be a pussyfoot pansy and get on your cell phone to call your mama and say your prayers, or you can take aim to fire and kill that soldier atop a mighty stick. Or better, shoot the beast of burden right from under his feet, greatly reducing the charging force and reducing quite readily their fierce resolve and advantage. Once in near battle, he is still straddling atop an unstable platform, permitting you to simply reach out and touch someone, knock your persecutor from his high horse, and let him know the love of your one and true God. There were two sides to every coin, and fortune favored the bold in battle, who act smartly in violence of action. Are we clear? Yes, sir! Sir, yes, sir! Are we clear? Outstanding. The quick and the dead. Moving on. And it was not until World War I, the war to end all wars, when ironically some innovative captain, at the same time perhaps a reader of Greek classical literature and the tales of a cunning Odysseus, that frontal assault became an antiquated form of prosecution in battle in subordinated preference to an indirect approach that the Germans began development and use of the very first instances of what we might call today shock therapy in chemical warfare, with the face of a mustard seed placed in a vaporous gas debilitating masses of troops huddled in trench warfare, but interestingly, rarely if ever killing them, unless they happen to be occasioned by a prolonged exposure, or by concealing underlying health conditions from their recruiter for the opportunity to let that other poor dumb bastard kill them for their country. And if you want to debilitate troops in crowd control, a chemical agent remains one of the most reliable, for it will place upon your opponent a simulated feeling and apprehension of grave bodily harm and death, probably making him wish that he would die, which generally is enough for a pussyfoot pansy to be forced into retreat. And that is why even law enforcement today in riot situations continue to use crowd control agents like tear gas to assert their will and power to quell a rebellion before them, even if they be of superior number. Because a superior number of pussyfoot pansies is no contest to a seasoned soldier in war. And if you want to debilitate troops in crowd control, a chemical agent remains one of the most reliable, for it will place upon your opponent a simulated feeling and apprehension of grave bodily harm and death, which generally is enough for a pussyfoot pansy to be forced into retreat. And that is why even today law enforcement in riot situations continue to use crowd control agents like tear gas to assert their will and power to quell a rebellion before them, even if of superior number. Yes, indeed. But like chemical agents that have their advantages over the weak, they also come with attendant disadvantages, most prominent of which is persistence. Normally a good quality in a soldier, but a bad quality in a nuclear, biological, or chemical agent. For if you spray an area with toxic chemical agents, either you must roam about in heavy protective gear, little face mask on, looking like a doctor or whatever you're trying to look like, or you have to call some sanitation worker to clean it all up. Toxic cleaner man. Ineffective if your objective is to control ground quickly and exploit your gains. In nuclear battle in the 1980s, many played with the idea of the neutron bomb that would provide minimal physical damage to the buildings around that you probably wanted to use, and a radiological agent that would quickly dissipate, but with the advantage of mass lethality effects to enable you to secure and hold key terrain with your enemy dead. A modern wonder of warfare indeed. Or, however, gentlemen and ladies, what if you wanted to achieve the best of all possible worlds in battle? A Voltaire situation for war. Little damage to the physical plant so that you could use its facilities, and at least debilitation of your frightened and cowering pansy foot foes. Welcome to biological warfare, ladies and gentlemen. A one-stop shop for the perfect weapon of war. Nothing lives forever. Not even you. And a biological agent, over a relatively short time in warfare, will depart smartly and move out aboard the body of whatever ignorant host would accommodate you, or simply lose its pliability and effectiveness on the ground over time. Fear causes your opponents in battle to do stupid things, and stupidity rarely prevails in the conduct of war. And aren't we glad?
Sir, yes, sir!
I said, aren't we glad?
Sir, yes, sir!
And so always, in the gifts of intelligence, pray to a God in heaven that he loves you far more than your ignorant enemy and endowed you with superior knowledge to prevail against him. Does the God in heaven love you more than your enemy?
Sir, yes, sir!
Very good. And aren't we glad?
Sir, yes, sir!
I said, aren't we glad?
Sir, yes, sir!
That concludes this block of instruction. I have made a depression. If there are any questions, I really do not give a damn. Never mind.
Sir, yes, sir!
Good. Attention.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.